I never thought it would be anything more than just a joke. You know, those harmless little comments that you think are funny at the time. But in hindsight, were completely out of line. Yeah, that's where it all started. My husband, Kyle, and I had been together for 5 years, and if I'm being honest, we were in one of those comfortable ruts that a lot of couples fall into. Not exactly bad, but not exciting either. We had our routine work. Dinner, TV, sleep, repeat. Sometimes it felt like we were just going through the motions. I didn't think Kyle would mind when I poked fun at him in front of our friends that night. We were having a small dinner party at our house, a casual get-together with a couple of our close friends. It was supposed to be a fun evening, full of laughs and light-hearted conversations. I was a little tipsy, laughing more than usual, but nothing crazy. One of our friends, Natalie, was talking about how she couldn't get her husband to help her with the kids. And I made a joke about how I had the opposite problem. Kyle was too helpful. Everyone laughed, but then I took it a step further, saying, "He's so weak that he's always trying to do everything for me, like I'm some damsel in distress. Like, it's adorable, but come on, I'm not some fragile flower." Kyle's face froze for a second. At first, I didn't think much of it. I knew he was a little sensitive about being overprotective sometimes, but I didn't think he would take it to heart. He didn't really say anything in the moment. He just gave this awkward half smile and kept his eyes on his drink. I didn't think I'd crossed any lines. Everyone else was still laughing, and the conversation moved on quickly. But Kyle wasn't laughing. He didn't speak much for the rest of the night. I could feel the shift in the atmosphere, but I brushed it off. Maybe I just caught him at a weird moment. Maybe he was tired, or maybe he just didn't find it funny. I figured it'd blow over by morning. The thing is, it didn't. And I didn't know that until the next day. When I woke up the following morning, I found Kyle already gone. No, good morning. No, hey. I'll be back later. Just the emptiness of a house that felt off. At first, I thought maybe he'd just gone for a morning run or something. But as the hours passed and he didn't come home, I started to get worried. It wasn't like him to just leave without saying anything. I texted him, but he didn't respond. I called, but it went straight to voicemail. That's when the panic really set in. Something was wrong. I was trying to think back to the night before, wondering if I had done something to upset him. But I couldn't remember anything that would make him leave without a word. I thought maybe I should call his mom, or his best friend, something. I knew I had to find out where he was. But my mind kept coming back to that stupid joke I made. Did it really bother him that much? I'll be honest, I didn't understand the extent of how much it had hurt him until I heard the message. Late in the afternoon, Kyle called me, but it wasn't the usual, "Hey, babe," tone. His voice was cold, distant, almost robotic. "Don't bother coming home. I need space. I need you to leave me alone for a while." It was like a punch to the gut. My heart dropped to my stomach. I didn't even know how to respond. I tried to explain, tried to apologize, but he just cut me off, saying that he couldn't keep doing this, that he couldn't keep being made fun of, that I wasn't who he thought I was. The words were like daggers, and every one of them left a mark. I felt so stupid. I had been too careless, too wrapped up in trying to get a laugh from my friends. I never imagined it would hurt him that much. The thought that I'd caused this rift between us, over something so trivial, didn't even seem real. It was like the world around me was shifting, and I was powerless to stop it. That night, I slept on the couch, not because he told me to, but because I couldn't bring myself to crawl into our bed alone. I kept thinking about that joke. That stupid, stupid joke. I never thought it would go this far. And now, the man I loved was telling me he needed space, maybe more than space. Maybe he needed out. I didn't know what to do. I didn't know what to say. I tried texting him again the next morning, but still nothing. I could feel the gap growing between us, and it scared me. All I wanted was for things to go back to how they were before, when we could laugh together, when things were easy. But I knew, deep down, that I had pushed him too far this time. That my thoughtless words had changed something between us, something that I wasn't sure could ever be repaired. The hardest part wasn't him being distant. It was knowing that I'd caused it. I knew I couldn't undo the damage I'd done, but I didn't know how to fix it either. Days passed, and the silence was suffocating. I kept going through the motions of my daily life. Work, the gym, pretending everything was fine when people asked about Kyle. But it wasn't fine. He still hadn't come home. He didn't reply to my messages. He didn't take my calls. It felt like I was living in some kind of nightmare, and no matter how many times I pinched myself, it wouldn't end. The guilt was eating me alive. I kept replaying that over and over in my head, wondering what I could have done differently. Why didn't I just stop myself before I made that stupid joke? I tried to reach out to his friends, asking if they knew where he was, or if he'd said anything to them, but they were just as clueless. They said they hadn't heard from him either. I was stuck in this place where I had no answers, just a mounting sense of dread. But then, about a week later, I got a text from Kyle. It wasn't a call, it wasn't an attempt to fix things. It was cold, direct, and it made my stomach turn. The message was brief, but it hit me like a ton of bricks. I've been thinking. I need to be alone for a while. I don't think we're good for each other anymore. I'm moving out. There it was. The words I never thought I'd hear. Moving out. For good. I wanted to scream, to beg him to come back, to beg him to understand how sorry I was. I tried calling him, but again he didn't pick up. I didn't know what to do, so I did what I always do when I'm overwhelmed. I broke down. I cried for hours. It was a mix of guilt and anger, confusion and heartbreak. I didn't want him to leave, but I also knew that I had pushed him too far. I had hurt him. I could see it now. How that one comment, made in front of our friends, had built up a wall between us that I couldn't tear down. I didn't want to admit it, but I realized that the distance between us was more than just that night. There had been cracks in our relationship before this. I had just ignored them. Still, no matter how much I wanted to blame him, or the situation, I couldn't. I had created this mess. The following days were just a blur of emotions. I moved between anger, guilt, and desperation. I tried to reach out to him again, to apologize. I told him how much I regretted everything. I told him that I loved him and would do anything to make things right. I even asked if we could go to therapy together, to work through our issues. But he didn't respond. He was gone, really gone. It felt like he had made up his mind, and no matter how hard I tried to convince him, nothing was going to change that. But then, one day, I saw something that made my heart sink. Kyle had posted a picture on social media. It was a photo of him, sitting at some cafe, looking happier than I had seen him in months. He was with a woman, someone I didn't recognize. She was laughing at something he said, and they were holding hands. I didn't want to believe it at first. I thought maybe it was just a friendly thing. But then I noticed the way they were looking at each other. The way they seemed to be so comfortable. The same comfort we used to have. I didn't want to admit it, but the reality hit me hard. Kyle had already moved on. He wasn't just looking for space anymore. He had found someone else. It felt like a punch to the chest. Everything I had been holding on to, the hope that maybe we could work it out, that maybe he just needed time, came crashing down in an instant. He had already made up his mind, and it wasn't about us. It wasn't about fixing things. He was done. I felt so stupid. Stupid for thinking that I could just apologize and fix everything. Stupid for not realizing that the damage was deeper than I thought. But the worst part wasn't that he had found someone else. It was the realization that I had driven him to this point. I had pushed him away, and now it was too late to take it back. I spent the next few days just trying to keep myself together. I didn't talk to anyone about what had happened. I didn't want to explain the situation because I knew it was my fault. I could already hear the judgment in their voices, the pity, the "I told you so's." They wouldn't understand. How could they? How could I even explain the kind of regret that I felt in my bones? But despite everything, I couldn't stop thinking about Kyle and the woman he was with. Was she better than me? Was she what he needed all along? I couldn't help but compare myself to her. She was younger, more put together, and they looked so happy together. I hated how much it hurt to see him smiling without me. I wanted to hate her, to make her the villain in this story, but deep down, I knew the real villain was me. I wanted to scream at Kyle, to demand answers, to beg him to come back. But I knew I couldn't. I had already lost him. I had let a moment of careless joking ruin everything. And now, I was left with nothing but the painful reality that I had driven him away. The hardest part, accepting that I was the one who pushed him into the arms of someone else. And I don't know if I'll ever forgive myself for that. It's strange, how the hardest things in life often come with no warning at all. You don't realize the full weight of something until it's too late to undo it. And that's where I was now, trapped in this place of regret, surrounded by the aftermath of my own decisions. I thought I could fix things. I thought if I just kept apologizing, if I just kept trying to make him see how sorry I was, he'd eventually come back. But instead, he had slipped away, completely. When I saw the photo of him and that woman, I thought it was the worst thing that could happen. But no. The worst thing was realizing that it wasn't just a picture. It was his new reality. That was the moment it really sank in I had lost him for good. I knew he wasn't going to come back. The next few days felt like an endless loop of confusion and emotional exhaustion. I was drowning in my own guilt, feeling like I couldn't breathe. Kyle and I had been through so much together, and now it was over. Because of a stupid, careless comment I made. All because I thought it was funny to poke fun at him in front of our friends. It seemed so small at the time, but looking back, it was the first crack in a relationship that had already been weakening. In my head, I kept going over the details of our relationship, trying to pinpoint the moment where things went wrong. Sure, there had been those little signs, the lack of spark, the growing distance between us. But they were so easy to ignore. I was too comfortable, too used to having him around that I didn't realize how much I had taken him for granted. Kyle wasn't perfect. No one is. But he was good to me. He was patient, loving, and kind in a way that I hadn't fully appreciated until now. And then there was the other part, the one that still felt like a heavy weight in my chest. I knew what I had done. I knew what had led him to move on so quickly. It wasn't just the joke. It wasn't just that one night. It was everything that had built up over time. I won't lie, the guilt was suffocating. But it wasn't just guilt over the joke. It was guilt over what I had done after that, too. Guilt that I hadn't been the wife he needed. Guilt that I didn't notice his frustration sooner. And guilt that I didn't see how close he was to breaking until it was too late. And then there was the deeper, more painful part. The part I had never really admitted to myself. I had cheated on him. I don't mean to make excuses. I don't mean to say, oh, I wasn't happy, so it was okay. That's not what I'm trying to say at all. What I'm saying is that in the midst of all this emotional turmoil, in the confusion and loneliness, I made a decision I'll regret for the rest of my life. It wasn't planned. I didn't wake up one day and think, today's the day I'm going to cheat. But it happened. I don't even know how to explain it. I was feeling so empty and disconnected from Kyle. It wasn't just the fight we'd had or the fact that he was ignoring me. It was this growing sense of frustration, this feeling that I wasn't being seen, and in my weakness, I found someone else. Someone who made me feel wanted, someone who made me feel noticed. It wasn't about love. It wasn't about finding something that was missing in my marriage. It was about escaping the pain, the discomfort, and the rejection. I wanted to feel good about myself again. And in that moment, I chose to ignore the consequences. I hate that I did it. I hate that I betrayed him in such a selfish way. And now, as I look back, I realize that was the ultimate destruction of our relationship. I betrayed his trust in the worst way possible. I still remember that night like it was yesterday. I was at a bar with a friend, trying to push my problems out of my head, when I ran into Mark, an old acquaintance of mine from work. He was a nice guy, easy to talk to, and he was just there. We started chatting, and before I knew it, we were laughing, flirting, and then, well, things went further than they should have. It was quick. It wasn't some long affair or anything like that. But the fact that it happened at all is something I can't forget. I didn't know how to deal with it afterward. It was a mess, and the guilt was unbearable. I didn't tell Kyle, of course. I could never do that. But I kept thinking about him and how I was betraying him more and more every day. But instead of coming clean, instead of trying to repair the damage I had done, I kept pushing it all down, pretending like everything was fine. But it wasn't fine, and I knew that. When Kyle left, when he moved out, it wasn't just the joke I had made that caused it. It was everything. It was my betrayal, my negligence, and my inability to be the partner he needed me to be. I had failed him, and now I was left alone with the wreckage of everything I had broken. I can't stop thinking about him. I can't stop imagining what he's doing with her. I can't stop hating myself for allowing things to get so far. I wish I could go back and make different choices, but I can't. All I can do now is sit with the regret and try to understand how I got here. I hurt him, and now there's no turning back. It's funny, in a way, how your life can feel like it's completely falling apart, and yet the world around you keeps moving forward. Time doesn't stop. People don't wait for you to get your act together, and life doesn't pause for you to figure out your mess. The moment Kyle left, it felt like the world as I knew it just crumbled. I kept going through my days in a fog, pretending to be okay, but inside, I was unraveling. I couldn't stop thinking about everything I had done, everything I had lost. But the hardest part of it all was the loneliness. It wasn't just being alone in the house, although that was brutal. It was the emptiness in my heart, the realization that the man I loved, the man I had built my entire future with, was gone. And it wasn't just because of one stupid joke I made in front of our friends. No, the damage was far deeper than that. It was the betrayal I carried with me, the betrayal that had pushed him to a point where he couldn't stay any longer. It was easy, at first, to justify everything in my head. I told myself that Kyle was overreacting, that the joke wasn't that big of a deal. But as the days turned into weeks, and the silence between us stretched out longer and longer, I realized just how wrong I had been. I was the one who had hurt him. I was the one who had driven him to a place where he couldn't trust me anymore. And that truth, it was crushing. I spent those weeks trying to keep my life from completely falling apart. I went to work. I hung out with friends, though I wasn't really there. I posted on social media like everything was fine, like I wasn't dying inside. But it was all just a facade. The emptiness kept creeping in. I kept looking at our photos together, remembering how happy we used to be. And with every passing day, the weight of my mistakes grew heavier. But then came the day I couldn't ignore it anymore. Kyle texted me again. It wasn't a long message. In fact, it was so short that it almost didn't feel real. I don't think I can do this anymore. I don't know what happened to us, but I can't keep pretending it's okay. I'm moving on. I've already started. I need you to let me go. That was it. The finality of it hit me like a wave. I'd been clinging to the hope that maybe, just maybe, things could work out. But reading those words made me realize the truth. He was done. He wasn't just angry or hurt anymore. He was gone, and he wasn't coming back. I wanted to scream. I wanted to throw my phone across the room. But instead, I just sat there, staring at the screen. I tried to text back, but nothing seemed right. What could I possibly say? How could I apologize for everything I had done? How could I fix the wreckage I had caused? I had cheated. I had mocked him. I had betrayed him. And now there was nothing left but the reality that I had lost him. I spent the next few days in a haze, trying to wrap my head around everything. I went back to the night we first met, to the way he looked at me like I was the only person in the room. I remembered our first date, our first kiss, how everything seemed perfect. And now, here I was, sitting in the wreckage of a relationship I had destroyed with my own hands. I tried to call him. I tried to text him. But nothing. He had already cut me off completely. And that hurt more than anything else. The idea that he could just shut me out, that he could turn off the love we had so easily, was unbearable. But that's the thing about regret. It doesn't go away. It doesn't give you a chance to make things right. You can't undo the hurt you've caused. You can't take back the things you've said or done, no matter how much you wish you could. And I wished I could take everything back. I wished I could go back to that night and stop myself from making that joke, from hurting him in the first place. I wanted to tell him that I was sorry, that I knew I had messed up, that I had been a fool. But it wasn't just a matter of saying, "I'm sorry." It was about understanding the depth of the hurt I had caused. It was about facing the fact that I had destroyed his trust, his confidence in me, and no amount of apologies could fix that. In the end, I think the worst part of all of this is knowing that I lost him because of my own selfishness. I took him for granted, and I pushed him away with my careless actions. And now, there's no going back. There's no chance to fix it, no way to rewind time. The truth is, I don't know what I was expecting. I think in some corner of my mind, I was hoping that if I kept apologizing, if I kept reaching out, Kyle would eventually come back. But I understand now. He can't come back. Not after everything I did. Not after I broke his trust in the way that I did. So all I have left now is the silence. The long, painful silence that stretches on, reminding me of all the things I should have done differently. I can't change what happened. I can't undo the mistakes I made. But I can carry this weight with me. This reminder of the man I lost because of my own stupidity. And maybe, just maybe, I'll learn from it. Maybe I'll be better next time, if there is a next time. But right now, all I can do is sit in the regret and the loss. And hope that somehow, in some way, Kyle will find happiness again, whether it's with me or without me. But one thing is clear: I will never, ever forget the lesson I learned the hard way. And I don't think I'll ever stop feeling sorry for what I did.